What are words for? This is the focus group.
Listen, laugh, and learn.
You have to drill that target audience.
It's the focus group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Until they are consuming your product, not because they love it, but because they can't escape.
We're all business.
Drill, baby, drill, baby. No more pussyfooting around.
Except when we're not.
Sorry, that never gets old for me. That drill, baby, drill, baby.
Especially the no more pussyfooting around. She makes it known.
I love everything about our old gal, but she seems to have disappeared. Hey, welcome to the focus group. Tim Bennett here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. Join us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. East. We are streaming, or we're available on Facebook, which is our address there is Focus Group Radio, and also on our YouTube channel, which is also Focus Group Radio, and our website houses all our media, both audio and video, at focusgroupradio.com. So
Go figure.
Figure. As John always says. And a special thanks to our friends at Deep Discount that bring us to you here each week as well. So we'll be talking about them in a little bit. John, before we go down, I wanted to mention something to you this morning, but I didn't, so I saved it for the show. Did you by any chance catch the documentary from Pete Sosa, the White House photographer, As I See It?
Oh, I saw it advertised and I really wanted to see it. He was a photographer through Bush. And
No, he did Reagan.
He did Reagan, then he was Obama's White House. Okay,
It was Obama's, and it's a 2-hour. It's not interrupted. You can do it on demand through MSNBC or NBC, I suppose.
Thank you for the recommendation, by the way, because I'm going to jot it down. I wanted to watch it.
I've watched it twice.
Twice.
Yeah, and Richard, who's not political, was shocked about how good it is and how much he learned. But essentially, which you don't, I don't want to spoil it for you because I had no idea this is what would happen. But obviously, they show lots of pictures of the Obama administration from when he decided he was going to run for president all the way through him leaving the White House. And but the last 20 minutes are kind of a surprise and something I was unaware of. So I think if you watch it, you may be surprised as well.
A good surprise?
A very good surprise. And I don't know how it passed, or I don't know how it got by myself or you, in that we did not know about this. But it's something that Pete has done, and how he's using the photography now. He's got a book that's out called Shade, which he's on the circuit to talk about the book. But he does make I will say and Richard did as well. There were, I would say, 3 or 4 times where I actually cried.
Really?
Yeah, it's a very emotional, very. Yeah, I think you'll find it
affecting.
Surprising.
Is the word we want to use.
Affecting, I guess, is a good word. So I was pleased because a lot of times those broadcast documentaries can be lopsided, or I think this obviously has a point of view, but they make no bones about the point of view. So, but unless you're not a human, they obviously just. One little piece. Obviously, Obama has said this many, many times. President Obama, his worst day in office was the Sandy Hook shootings.
Yeah.
And they spend some time on that in the photography and ask the photographer how you go about handling a situation like that. And, when are you intrusive or when do you just say back off? And so it was very well done. You'll like it because you love the art of photography. And so combined with politics, it's interesting. And then the Reagans as well. His relationship with the Reagans and how he was with them. So it was worth the watch. I'd recommend anybody watch that.
It's a fascinating thing in general because the fact that we have a White House photographer speaks to the fact that the press is always supposed to have been given an elevated position of authority and news telling. And that same photographer he was doing a couple things during the last couple years where he would put out a side by side, a picture of Obama doing something and a picture of 45 doing something. And it was always very snarky, like, here's how this is done, here's how this is done. Is that right?
And that's part of what was going on at the end that was surprised to me, that I didn't know he had this whole huge Instagram feed of that sort of stuff of here's how a world leader does negotiations, and it would be that sort of stuff. So that totally missed me. I was shocked because I'm on social media. I figured I would have seen that, and I didn't. But it starts with, the Kennedys. I didn't realize this. The Kennedys were the first to really start this thing with a photographer to document the life and times of the the first family, the president of the first family, and the Reagan stuff was quite interesting too. It's fun to watch. You'll enjoy it.
Well, thank you. You know what? I bet we're going to watch that tonight because I don't want to get involved in a series, and I would love to see this. So I'm gonna. And you said it's street like on demand for MSNBC.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's not on demand. I watched it. Yeah, it is because I did watch it on demand. So through Comcast or Xfinity, probably whoever you have, Spectrum. I don't know who your provider
same
is.
thing. Yeah, and I'll check it out. That's a perfect tonight thing. That will be a perfect way to end the day because we're going to be doing our work, and then I have to go out and vacuum up leaves and pine needles.
Leaves and pine needles.
Well,
did you have a lot of leaves falling? Ours are just turning down here in Delaware.
We had a lot. They were on the tree, and then we remember that storm we had that went through. That cold front that came through, and it had high winds. We lost power up here the whole bit. Blew every leaf off the tree, and it was everywhere on the grass. When we got up to the house this Saturday, I was like, thank you, nature, because nature had come along and blown most of it off, except what does remain has to get taken off. And I was just thinking, and you would probably remember this from when you were rowing, you know the change of seasons is happening when you have to dress differently to do your athletic activity. So, like, if you're cycling, you have to start wearing knee warmers, arm warmers, a base layer. The term base layer doesn't really have any meaning in July, but now it does, right?
Yeah, so did you get any color, or did the storm just take the leaves off prematurely?
We actually got a lot of beautiful color, and we saw a lot on the way up. And when I was bike riding this weekend, doing some cycling, I went down a road that was all lined with, I don't know what the tree is that creates the super golden colored leaves, but it was like gold, 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 red, gold, gold. It was pretty spectacular.
Was it an aspen? It's a little Colorado, golden Colorado. Colorado's just gold.
Yeah.
Right. That's all they get.
Because all the aspens
gold
turn.
that falls off and then it snows. So, yeah. So, hey, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
I am surprised, actually, that this did not cross your radar or that did not, in fact, become a caught your eye because you're a huge fan of this stuff. But basically, the original puppets from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer are going up for auction.
Uh-oh.
And there's an interesting story about them. So it's Santa Claus, Rudolph, a bunch of the puppets. And the stop-motion cuteness of one of our most beloved. It's one of your favorites. I happen to love it, but I also love Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Are you going to mention how you always talk about how as the show goes along,
the puppets get dirtier and dirtier and fingerprints. Yeah. Well, so they're handmade, right? So the original Rudolph and Santa puppets from the classic 1964 film, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, are going up for auction. Rudolph, Santa, the sleigh, and the misfit toys will cost a pretty penny. The rare and iconic figures in American pop culture will be sold together for an estimated $150,000 to $250,000 on November 13th in Los Angeles. So they've had a kind of interesting history. Finally, after all these years, the owner has decided to pass ownership of these enormously famous characters to a new owner. Crafted by Japanese puppet maker Ichiro Kamuro, the puppets are made of wood, wire, cloth, leather, and yak hair and stand less than 1 foot tall. So this is what Tim was talking about. If you see a cleaned up print of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which is pretty much what you get on DVD or Blu-ray, it's cleaned up. As the show progresses, you will notice that the puppets get dirty and there are like actual marks on them where people have been handling them because it's stop motion. You have to touch it every second you take a frame. But I think it was Matt that actually pointed that out to you too, wasn't it?
Right. I am shocked that is it a private owner that owns these?
Yes. So what happened was this. The puppets were housed in the Rankin Bass production offices of New York until the early 70s when they were passed down to a series of owners, literally gifts. Producer Arthur Rankin Jr. gifted the puppets to his secretary, who eventually passed them to her nephew. The nephew went on to sell the puppets to a collector in 2005, and that's the pedigree. In 2006, both Santa and Rudolph were lightly restored, replacing a side of Santa's yak mustache and white fur ball on the end of his hat, along with Rudolph's nose, bulb, and some electrical wiring, allowing the nose to glow again. So they were passed as gifts down twice, and then eventually sold, and now they're being sold again. But imagine just handing them to your secretary. See, that's the thing about movie memorabilia and movie props that fascinate me. They're created for one thing only, to create the film. And after they're done, the film is the end product. But these loved puppets have, I mean, I can't imagine how they look now. I mean, 1964 to now, and they were already handled heavily, right?
I'm just shocked that they didn't make their way to the Smithsonian, or that maybe another studio didn't purchase them, or
A museum.
some
Well,
some museum or some
Smithsonian's
other
a
place
perfect
that
thing, yeah.
used to do all those studio tours out in LA or whatever. But I'm surprised they're not at the Smithsonian. Are you, or what?
Archie Bunker's chair is at the Smithsonian, right? You could walk by the chair he sat in for All in the Family. So I agree with you. I think it's kind of interesting that they're not housed. 1 or 2 years ago, Bob and I went to the Norman Rockwell Museum in Lenox, Mass, and we saw a whole big thing on the Jetsons, the Flintstones. It was the production Hanna-Barbera. And they had lunchboxes and thermoses and toys and all the stuff that used to come out based on the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. You would imagine that a Rankin and Bass museum show would have all the puppets, some of the sets, some of the drawings, but no such thing. So yeah, it's also, I guess other parts of the puppetry, the misfit toys and stuff, are owned by different people, or they don't exist anymore.
If you could have one of the ones, which one would you try to get?
Snow Bumble, for
Yeah,
sure.
you love that one.
I love my.
Is he for sale? Did it say whether he was for sale?
They
or
didn't.
not?
No, he's not. It's Rudolph the sleigh and Santa. And I have a Snow Bumble that Bob got me years ago. It was a toy. It's falling apart now. I need to find a new Snow Bumble. But he's my favorite piece of Christmas. When Snow Bumble comes out, I'm like, okay, the holidays have arrived.
I have a whole tree between my mom and really Mary Ann. Every year she would give me, for many, many years, an ornament from Rudolph. And I could probably do similar to how Bob does a sci-fi tree for you. I could probably do a full tree just with ornaments from Rudolph. But yeah, that did miss. I didn't see that one.
I'm surprised you did. Okay, so what caught your eye?
So this has been in the news all over the place, and when I saw it come out, I laughed about it. The headline is, after 60 years, Coca-Cola is calling it quits on Tab, so the diet drink Tab. So the snarky writer, Coca-Cola has paid for its last Tab. So
Snark indeed.
So they announced that they're going to stop selling the popular, well, it's not popular, but cultish diet drink at the end of the year. And they said it was once a popular drink in the 70s and 80s, but right now only accounts for 0.03% of their volume.
Whoa, that is low. I'm surprised they kept it this long.
Yep, and they said but they said it developed such a cult following because of its blend of artificial sweeteners, saccharin and NutraSweet. Now, you've had a Tab, haven't you? Aren't they horrible? I mean,
Yes.
they really are a horrible tasting drink, I think, but people do love them, right?
They do. And I would say if you're a Tab fan, try out Diet Dr. Pepper. Wasn't that one of
Yes.
your favorites, Tim?
Yeah, Diet Dr. Pepper actually tastes like the real thing,
Yeah.
which is odd. So they said due to the event, they've actually are going to eliminate over 500 different products, the Coca-Cola company, in their portfolio.
500
Yes,
products.
they're trying to slim down, as they said, people's tastes have changed, and non-performing products are going to get axed, and they figure this is the time to do it. Now, they said prior to the event they were looking at this, but this has just sped things up. So they're getting rid of things such as Diet Coke Feisty Cherry, Zico Coconut Water, Coke Life, Northern Neck Ginger Ale, Delaware Punch. I never heard of some of these.
Hey. Coconut water. You mentioned Zico. Like, there's a bunch of brands that do coconut
Yep.
water. What am I missing? What have we all missed? Or maybe we didn't miss a thing, and coconut water was just water that came out of a coconut. I mean, did you ever get into that trend?
No.
Okay.
I never did, but a lot of people have. But I do use coconut oil to cook with.
That's
But
different.
That's a different thing.
Yeah.
They're also shutting down the Odwalla juice and smoothie brand.
They
as
only
well,
they
too.
only acquired that like 10 years. Like, wow, okay, that's a recent
they said
acquisition.
they said the last time you probably remember ever hearing or seeing anything about Tab was when Homer Simpson tried to order it on the keyboard. He kept hitting Tab.
That's right.
And then they said also that in the movie Back to the Future, they said that Marty McFly orders one in Back to the Future in 1985. And they said, so it's no surprise that they haven't really spent any marketing dollars. Actually, they said they spent zero marketing dollars since 2008 on the brand. But they still have a very dedicated fan base that's upset. There's one woman they highlight in Utah, and her name is Tracy Whiting. She drinks 6 to 7 cans a day at a minimum, and she has a separate refrigerator just for Tab, and she always has it stocked with between 6 to 8 cases.
I'm going to make a prediction. When she passes away, there's going to be no need for embalming. There are enough chemicals that are going through her body and that from that Tab, though that's a habit. That's a habit.
She says that the Tab has a burn. Everything else just tastes flat.
I love her. Tab has a burn.
So she said all her friends tell her that Tab stands for taste awful bad. And for many years, and I thought this was true too, that Tab stood for. Do you remember what they said Tab stood for?
No.
So it was, a lot of people said it was, at least in the marketing circles, totally artificial beverage, Tab. But that is not the case. The company said that Tab really just came from keeping tab on your health or keeping tab of your calorie intake. And had it not been for Tab, we would never had Diet Coke or Coke Zero or any of these other diet brands that had led the way for a calorie-free soda. And so the Coca-Cola thanks them for that, but it's time to see it go. It's too bad, I guess, when you see things go away, but all things have their day in the sun.
And Tab had quite a day, huh?
Soda.
Oh, I stopped drinking a long time ago. And I remember Bob and I did must have been about 10 years ago. We did like a cleanse, like a 3-day thing. And after that, Bob never touched diet soda ever again. It's just one of those.
Kidding me.
Yeah, you just never had the taste for it. I mean, we used to always get like Diet Coke or something like that he would like, but gone.
Did he drink a lot of it at work?
No, it wasn't significant, but it broke that sugar chain, for at least part of the sugar chain, because cookies and cakes are still very much appreciated in our household.
Because I found myself having, particularly when I was in corporate America, using Diet Coke as a crutch. And I do remember, meaning that instead of me going, if I was hungry at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, instead of getting a pretzel or something, and say, I'll just have a Diet Coke. And then I'd have one at dinner and I'd one at lunch. So I was doing the same thing. I thought, God, I'm having 4 or 5 of these a day. Not good.
when you're buying it by the tube or those boxes that would rip off the end and you'd slide it into your refrigerator, that could be problematic. Yeah.
Yeah. So no more soda for me. But not that it's. I guess I feel different about it. I don't know. Once in a while I'll have a fizzy something, but who knows. So our business birthday today.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So born today, October 21st in 1891, Leo Burnett. He died at
I did this. I didn't even pay attention to that birth year. 1891.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
He died at 79, still working. He worked 3 days a week. He retired officially in 67, but he continued working at the ad agency until his very last day. He died, went home and had a heart attack, June 7th, 1971. But he's an American advertising executive and founder of Leo Burnett Advertising Agency, which is in Chicago, and a very well-known ad agency from the 20th century, of course. He founded the agency with only $50,000 that he had borrowed. In 1935, he got his start in advertising. He was in the military. He grew up in Michigan, went off to the military, came back and got a job at Cadillac, working in their in-house marketing department, marketing Cadillac cars, and then ended up meeting some folks and starting his own agency. And to me, the big part of this whole thing is there's 2 actual pieces that I found interesting. And I'll just read them to you so you can get an idea of how iconic this agency was. And really, I don't think has any comparable agency in terms of what they've done for American culture. So the Leo Burnett Agency is responsible for the Jolly Green Giant, Charlie the Tuna, Keebler Elves, Morris the Cat, Pillsbury Doughboy, Tony the Tiger, the Marlboro Man, Toucan Sam, the Maytag Repairman, United's Fly the Friendly Skies, and Allstate's Good Hands people. Aside from many, many, many blue chip companies like McDonald's, Hallmark, Coca-Cola, etc. So can you imagine having all of that roster under your roof?
Every single one that you named, I could almost name the tagline and the jingle that goes with the 2, right? I mean, that is an incredible amount of icons he's created for brands, right? It's pretty amazing.
No, and it said the thing with him is he was very much about the soft sell and getting to the emotional aspect. And so I laughed about it because a lot of what he says certainly holds true today. The agency still bears his name, and there's over 9,000 employees in 85 offices globally. But he gave a famous speech, and you can see it on YouTube. But I just did my own little excerpt of it. But he did this famous speech when he said goodbye to everybody when he retired, and said, "You could take my name off the door when." So in other words, he said, "I'm retiring. My name's on the door. You can call it something else." And he talks about integrity. He talks about when you're more concerned about money than doing good work, when you stop having fun, when you lose the itch to do good creative, regardless of the client, when you lose your passion for being thorough, when you lose creative insight, when you stop dedicating yourself to doing better advertising, when you compromise your integrity, if you're crude, things get too big and you worry about your office size, when you lose humility, when you run out of ideas. He goes through this whole thing. It's about a 9-minute speech. And he says, and you need to pay attention. And this reminded me of you. He said, and I want you to always make sure that you pay attention and support the lonely man at the agency. And he said that was often the creative that might be there late or might be off doing something by themselves, always trying to reach for that star. And he said, when you have to pay attention because those are the people, creative runs the shop, right? And we've always talked about that. So I thought it was good advice. And from 1967 to now, I think still holds true.
I think it's fantastic advice. And as you were reading that, though, I will say this. The one thing that could dampen or kill that list of all, if you're not having fun, is your client. You could have you could be passionate beyond belief and you can get through a lot of things, but clients have a way of kind of really squashing stuff, don't they? It's ham-handed or unintentionally, but that's the hardest part of advertising, is keeping an excitement level about them, not necessarily about the work you're doing. Do you agree?
Yeah, he did say, make sure you're having fun regardless, or, it was something, but he would say regardless of client. And I wonder if that was his way of saying it, that even though things may be down or it's not the most exciting thing to work on or you're never going to satisfy them, just make sure you're still having fun. I don't know. But you're right. Your bad client can throw a damper on everything, right?
It can, and I'm going to go once more to the little chart you created of some of his icons, though. I mean, I still laugh at the Pillsbury Doughboy. In fact, you can make magic, with the magic of popping fresh dough. For God's sakes, the little puppet used to sing that. And Tony the Tiger, they're great. And one of my favorite toys as a kid was my Tony the Tiger thing that made grrr, like a grrr sound that went on it was a Schwinn bike with the banana seat.
Oh, yeah, the Schwinn bike. So it said, all these icons and mascots he did, he said they called that dramatic realism in advertising. And it said it was known as the soft sell approach to build brand equity. Burnett believed in finding the inherent drama of products and presenting them in advertising through warmth, shared emotion, and experience. His advertising drew from heartland-rooted values using simple, strong, and instinctive imagery that talked to people. And he used cultural archetypes. So
it's brilliant. It really is brilliant. And I think that he's a giant of advertising, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of the stuff that he's done and he said, as you just pointed out in your excellent business birthday, rings to this day. The industry's changed a great deal. Clients have changed a great deal. And I actually think Leo Burnett harkens back to the days of Bewitched. Remember Darren? Well, Darren Stevens was an ad guy, right? Yeah. And he would do one ad that would be good for the entire country. And you and I know that now there's all segmentation and this and that. But that was back in the day when we had 3 networks. Rabbit ears on the TV. Radio was very dominant still. Print advertising was too. So I don't know. It's an interesting period to have been in advertising. Right, makes me almost want to go watch Mad Men again with Don Draper.
Yeah, and there's we're not going to get into it. There's an agency that got in trouble last week. Stan Richards, the owner of the Richards Group in Texas. You can Google it and see what happened. But he said something off color. And
in a meeting privately,
a meeting privately, and then it got out, and then he ended up losing a whole bunch of the agency ended up losing a bunch of accounts. The owner admitted that he probably said something wrong. But a lot of times you hit the nail on the head there with the advertising. Is the important part was always trying to let people complete the circle, right? So how do you balance that? And is somebody going to be offended, or could you offend somebody, or What do you do? We've talked about it many times, and how many different times. It's why we took people out of our LGBT advertising, because we could never satisfy the full rainbow of people in showing them
Oh,
or
and
portraying them in an ad
representations.
campaign.
Yeah. Last week I was interviewed for a documentary, and they talked about the work that Tim and I have done on Subaru, and specifically what Tim just said about not showing people because we all want to see ourselves, and if we don't see ourselves, we turn the ad off. But the director asked me a question. He said, "How would you define advertising?" So how would before I give you the answer I gave, if you just said, "What's your simple definition for advertising?"
A simple definition for advertising is communicating a brand message to the right audience.
Now, you see, you studied advertising. I fell into it through graphic design. I actually said that advertising to me is the art of creating desire.
The same thing.
Tomato.
No, it's the same thing, right? It's you have to hit an emotional chord
Passion.
and make somebody do something, right?
Yeah.
So there's passion, desire, but the clinical thing would be I'm going to communicate a message to the right people, and then hopefully the end result is that they support, buy, or use your service
Exactly.
or product.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did have somebody ask me once the difference between marketing and advertising. He didn't like my answer. I didn't get the business. I still think I was right.
You didn't get the business. Well, what did you say?
Well, I said, I said one's internal and one's external. One is how the public sees you. One is how you see yourself. And I think advertising, a lot of advertising is sometimes internally how you see yourself and you project that out to people. Marketing encompasses all the other things, whether it's a brochure, it's a print ad, it's out of home, it's events, it's all the communication stuff around it.
I agree with you.
He didn't like the answer. Of course,
Marketing is the machinery by which we move the message out and the desire. It's the infrastructure, it's the scaffolding, but it is not the message itself. Sometimes the marketing method can be part of the message because it could be unique or different, but it's definitely different than your brand pillars, the 4 P's of advertising, the whole bit. Interesting.
Yeah,
Good business birthday.
Around it, but you know how that you get put on the spot a lot of times with these clients.
And you have to answer, so you can't tap dance too much, right?
Yeah, be quick on your feet. No one gives us credit for that. So, hey, many of you know that Deep Discount's a partner of ours here on the Focus Group. Be sure to go to focusgroupradio.com and click on the Deep Discount logo and start shopping away. There's lots of great things there for you to choose from. And right now, because it is this season, there's a Halloween sale going on. And so we picked some Halloween movies, and we'll share them with you today. So which one did you pick this week, Mr. Nash?
I went right for something that I remember as a kid, and it's called The Night Stalker, and it's the Night Stalker Special Edition. Do you happen to remember The Night Stalker at all?
I don't.
All right, so
I was always scared of these sort of movies.
Oh, well, it's psychological. A lot of it was psychological and or supernatural stuff would happen. So Darren McGavin stars as rumpled Las Vegas reporter Carl Kolchak. An interesting name to have that in a script. You're going to play Carl Kolchak in the first of 2 classic made-for-TV chillers that spawned the 1974-75 series. And it's basically, this is the original one. And so it's while tracking a string of bizarre deaths that leave the victims drained of their blood. I suspect a vampire might be involved. Kolchak becomes convinced a vampire is roaming the neon streets. And with the local authorities dismissing him as a crackpot, he takes it upon himself to bring the fanged menace down. So I remember this, and then I remember the movie, the TV shows that it spawned, and I was always like, wow, Kolchak. And it was psychological terror. So so that was my pick.
So mine I've mentioned before, and mine's psychological as well, and it's from M. Night Shyamalan, who did The Sixth Sense and a bunch of other sort of paranormal or I guess movies of the genre of the unknown or the occult in some ways. This one's called The Visit, and while it's not gory or anything in that regard, it is it screws your mind. And
I'm laughing because we watched this on your recommendation.
Did you watch it?
15 or 20 minutes in, there's a scene where one of the grandkids goes out to this shed or something, and they discover one of the grandparents like half naked. The movie is a trip. Tim is not kidding. It is a classic horror movie in the sense that it's mostly psychological, but you love this. This is one of your favorites.
Well, it was weird to me because I've said this to you, and I'm not. I don't know. This is kind of a braggart thing or something, but like The Sixth Sense. Everybody talked about The Sixth Sense. I knew right away what was going on there. The kid was dead. So
see, I didn't. But you didn't get this one right away, did you?
So I didn't get this one right away. So for me, I was interested in it, but I thought it was creepy. And so anyway, if you like that sort of thing, and none of us can really go out and do our traditional Halloween stuff this year, so be sure you head over to Deep Discount and order some Halloween fare to share with your quarantine pals, I guess, or your quarantine pod. What was the new release this week?
Release this week is a fun one. It's Back to the Future, the Ultimate Trilogy. So it's all three, directed by Robert Zemeckis. Box set, including, and I love this when they do this, so you get the Blu-rays, but you also get to download the digital copies from your movie service of choice. Usually it's iTunes. And we all know, the setup here and how it played out over the three movies. I think it's a great set. Are you a fan of the Back to the Future movies? The first one was my ultimate favorite. I love the sequels.
The first one I saw in theater, and we were, late teens or whatever we were. We were probably early 20s, and I did like it. I never the only I would say, and you probably, well, maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't. The only movies that I found that do a good job doing a what's the word I'm looking for? Another one. Indiana Jones, for instance, there's a body of work, or Star Wars has a body of work. What do you call that? I don't know what the right word is. I'm losing my when you try to do a remake, it's not a remake, but it's a next one, like
a sequel.
Where the hell was I? You're looking at me struggling there with that face.
Well, I'm trying to think of what's he going? Left, right. Oh, it's sequels. Okay.
Grease 2 was horrible, right? So, Grease.
Does anybody remember Grease 2, for God's sake?
Well, that's what I mean. So on these trilogy things or some of this stuff, what I like about this is it's all included. So you get it all together. But in some cases, the sequels I don't find as good as the original, except for Indiana Jones and probably except for Star Wars.
Well, and you're only saying that for me because you're not a huge.
Because I think you can watch some of those and they still hold up on their own.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is good about that sort of thing. But you liked the sequel to Blade Runner, didn't you?
Loved it. Blade Runner 2049. Really, really liked it. Visually, just arresting. I could watch that film. Yeah, I've watched it several times. I love it. So that's the way I'm wired. And it was a good story. I liked it. So just to recap, it's the Halloween sale. And what a perfect time to get stuff. We mentioned the first one was The Night Stalker, which is, a classic psychological thriller. It goes back a ways. Tim loves The Visit. He's talked about this before. It is once you figure out what's going on, you're like, oh my God. There's the whole, 20 minutes to the end, you're like, oh my God, right?
Yeah. Before you go to the next one, I was going to pick Killer Tomatoes. Did you see that?
I've heard about the Killer Tomatoes. It's one of those cult classics,
we'll
right?
We'll have to ask Lauren about it one time. But I looked at the trailer. I've not seen it, but the trailer says it's probably the funniest horror movie around. But there's these tomatoes chasing and killing people. I thought I would recommend that, but it's there.
Well, okay, you did recommend it. So it's The Visit and the Killer Tomatoes. And Back to the Future is the release this week, the Ultimate Trilogy. Go to focusgroupradio.com and look for the shark logo, which is the Deep Discount logo. I'll do it just for today. Arr, Sharky the Shark. Even though some listeners do not like Sharky. They like Deep Discount. They just don't like my little Sharky thing. So we are going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to come back with the shop talk, so stay with us, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. You're listening to The Focus Group.
I said to my girlfriend just the other day, monsters are interesting, I said.
With Tim Bennett and John Nash.
And I'll bet you meet a lot of interesting people, too.
Hey, welcome back to The Focus Group. I hope everybody's wearing their mask. Since there's no national mandate, we'll give you one. Wear your mask.
A focus group mandate.
We should get a focus group mask. I looked into getting them made, but we need to get, I think we had to make 150 of them. And they would cost probably, I think they were $9 each or something.
Oh, okay. If it was 9 cents, I'd be right there.
Well, we'll have to contact China. Maybe we can get them for 9 cents. I'll ask Roman, see if you can find them for us. So, hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here with John Nash. Be sure to check us out at focusgroupradio.com. All of our media is housed there, both from our podcast, TFG Unbuttoned, as well as our shows, audio and video form. So John had found this shop talk. The headline is, ditch these 12 words and phrases that make you sound boring, says a speech expert. I need to go talk to he or she. And what to say instead of these words. So it goes through this list of 12 words. John, I'll be curious to see if you agree with some of them or not. But it says essentially, instead of saying this, say that. It will make you sound more interesting or less boring. In some cases, I'm not sure I totally agree, but let's see what we think. What was the first one?
The first one was at this point in time. And it wordy, inefficient, makes you sound like you're trying too hard to seem smart and intellectual. And then they say what to say instead. Right now, at present, now. The reason I picked this as a shop talk is I don't agree with 3/4 of the stuff they put on here. There's nothing wrong with saying at this point in time. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's how these are what we call connecting phrases. It lets you bridging phrases. You get to go from one thought to the next. And I think they're alternates of right now, at present. At present, I have never said it that way, or now, anyway. I don't mean to be like, I told you in my note that I was going to not be happy with this shop talk.
Yeah, no, I think I'm not going to add any more there. The number 2, and I'm guilty of this, but right. So these are filler words typically used as crutches in conversation. And it's difficult. A lot of it's a habit. I've tried to break myself of using like as one I've used too much. I'll say too much. And so what they're saying is that you should either just not say anything, or in some cases say what I meant was, or I just remembered something relevant to this, or what you said made me think of. So it says to forget the preface. I don't.
Well, no, that was forget the preface, start talking. That's my solution to all of this. Is I will watch people being interviewed, and then they'll go, so you have a great question, and it is a bridge, it is a filler.
Right.
But the people I really admire, like I was watching John Meacham being interviewed the other day, and they were asking him about presidents in the past and stuff like that. And they asked him a question. He sits for a second, then he immediately began with a complete sentence, and it had none of that stuff, none of the bridging stuff. So it's just that taking that pause and then speaking.
Right, because you will in a nervousness, or when you're being interviewed, you will just try to just say something, and
You'll
then you'll throw in
compensate.
one of those filler words.
Yeah. The next one is, can I pick your brain? It's a cliche, but here's my problem with this being on this list is we know it's a cliche. Everybody says, can I pick your brain? And they literally mean, I want to talk to you and I want to get an idea, or I want to run something by you. In fact, the way they say this is what to say instead. Can you help me with something? You always have good ideas. Can I ask you for advice? Oh, come on. You know more about this than I do. Do you have time to ... Let me pick your brain. I mean,
yeah, that's too passive.
Do you agree? I thought
for me. I totally agree with you. And I always love when somebody says to us they want to have a phone interview, or they want to have a phone screen or something. Yeah. Right. So you and I will get on the call. Hi, this is John. This is Tim. This is Tribury. Is now still a good time? Don't ask me that. Of course it's still a good time. We're on the phone.
We scheduled the call. Yes.
We scheduled the call, right? What do you think? Something came up 3 minutes ago? If so, I'd let you know before we got on the call. Do you ever get that one all the time? Is now still a good time to talk? No, it's not. Goodbye.
Now, when I call someone randomly, like we used to do in the old days, right? Like if I just pick up the phone and call someone and they answer, I'll say, might not be a good time for a call right now. Let me know, yay or nay. Yeah. Oh, no, it's fine. I got 5 minutes. Go ahead. That's appropriate. But when you scheduled it, and it's a Zoom thing or something, anyway.
And I agree with you on this one too about can I pick your brain, because I think it sounds more informal and it's more collaborative than can you help me with something? Yeah. Can you help me with something sounds like you're helpless.
Yeah,
can I pick your brain? Let's talk this through. Can I pick your brain? So I agree with you on that one. This one, number 4, I didn't quite understand the use of this. Disorientated and disoriented.
I'm with you. Yeah.
And I put no for disorientated, and I put disoriented. Yes, this orientated thing. A lot of people use orientated, or there's another version people will use. It sounds awful to me. I worked for a company that insisted on saying unmatchable. It's like it's unmatched. It's not unmatchable.
Thank you for the correct. Yeah, and their response was use things like lost, confused, or puzzled. I just skipped over that one. And this next one, I don't know how you feel about this. I've never even heard this used. You do you.
Yeah. Well, it's a big Facebook thing. Girl, you do you. I'm going to do me. I thought it's too slangy. I agree with that one. The you do you. It's part of the woke culture, John.
Okay, so it's out. And then this next one, you and I use this and legitimately when we're talking about brand work that we're doing. So, Tim and I do a lot of brand consulting and brand work, and there's this phrase that we often use called best practices. So this is number 6 on this list, best practices. Right. This term is so vastly overused, it's like Novocaine for your listener's brain. And they recommend instead to say best policy, okay, accepted, proven, recommended methods, best way of doing stuff. Don't you think that best practices kind of sums that up in a nice, neat 2-word thing? I had no problem.
What that means. Yeah. Now, a lot of it is for HR, for training speak, I think. Well, here, let's look at best practices. Here's how you treat your, diversity initiatives within your company. Here's some people have done. Here's their best practices. And so I agree with you. I think it's perfectly fine to say best practices. Number 7, deep dive and drill down. We've heard this a million times, mostly around research.
Yes, mostly,
Somebody
if not
says,
completely.
Well, let's look at the consumer. We're going to take a deep dive, meaning let's get beyond zip code and salary or something, and or how many kids in the house. And you take a deep dive or you drill down. I thought there was nothing wrong with either of those two, but they said, well, maybe you could say focus on, really think about, study. The Japanese, when I worked with the Japanese, they always said study. We will study. You must study. But that was essentially,
I don't know.
Let's drill down.
As I'm talking with you about this list, part of me is pissed off about this because we spent our whole careers learning some of this terminology and when to use it. Like it was almost like a rite of passage when you could finally say a deep dive or,
Yeah.
This next one, move the needle. I don't use it myself very often, and in fact, the critique here is needle moving in general. What needle are we talking about? I would always assume that moving the needle was one of those like sound things, or like the needle bounces around with how much input's happening. What to say instead? Have an effect, generate a reaction, achieve results. There are other phrases for this. I was kind of neutral. I'm like, okay, I don't have to say move the needle. I don't know about it.
We used to say ring the register.
There you go.
Ring the bell. But move the needle is if you look at a continuum of sales, and it's a line, and then you want to increase sales, you would move the needle. So I've heard that used, but again, I don't find it offensive. Number 9, disrupt. Disrupt. And they said there's nothing wrong with the word except that it's instantly tedious. In the same way, it's bizarre to say hi to someone several times in a row. It's a weird use of language that's nearly meaningless as it is fresh and new. I didn't quite understand what that means.
Neither did I. And I think it's perfectly appropriate sometimes to say we would like to disrupt the thinking or we want to disrupt how someone's going down the aisle and looking at their normal brands or I don't know. I almost felt like this article was written. It's like Charles Dickens used to get paid by the word, which is why so many of his stories are so insanely long because he describes everything. But he got paid by the word. And someone was writing this for like CNBC. They're like, I think I got to really stretch this from 5 words I don't like to 12. The next one is utilize. Yeah. We're going to utilize the horizontal. Well, make use of, harness, or use. Aren't those the same thing? And I know that we're supposed to be talking about language that makes people bored, but I've never had a reaction to utilize other than, oh, okay, I know what they're talking about. Like that's not a problem for me.
Yeah, I put about 15 question marks next to that one. I just said what? No idea.
Paid by the
number
word.
11. Number 11 was literally, and it says nearly always incorrectly used. Literally means exactly or actually, and so they said Instead, say nothing. There's literally no way to use this word in a way that creates value and deeper understanding. That probably should have been up in the filler words.
Agreed. It is a filler.
Similar to when people would always say, can I be honest with you or honestly?
Mm-hmm. Good point.
It's the same sort of thing, I think. And what was the 12th one?
Last one is something that I catch myself using at the end of the day. At the end of the day, all things being like, here's a classic phrase that we use in a meeting. At the end of the day, all things being considered, and looking at the research we just reviewed, you can do this, this, or this, and everything's going to go this way. I mean, I think it's just one of those. And here the replacement words would be ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, which I've used before and been accused of being too,
pompous.
Yeah, or in the end.
In the grand scheme of things.
Exactly right, Tim. Exactly right.
Day, ultimately, use them all, string them together.
Yeah. So there you go.
The one that I had a professor that would beat this into us, and I had a boss that used it all the time, and maybe that's why I have an aversion to it. But was anything wise. And this one was not on the list, but he would say things budget-wise, marketing-wise, tax-wise, size-wise, retail-wise, dealer-wise. Everything was wise. And instead of saying, in the manner of, or regard to, or depending on, whatever. And so I used to always wonder that one. He overused it. It certainly is usable in certain places, but he would overuse it all the time. He used it as such a crutch. And that one didn't make the list, but...
It made your list.
Made my list. But I was with you on this. I thought some of this, I probably should have done some research on the contributor, the guy who did this. His name's John Bowe, Bowe. I don't know what he does. He's a speech trainer.
You and I used to write pieces a while ago for HuffPost and for a couple of business magazines. And we labored to do good pieces on how to structure your day, or how to, make projects move forward. And I found one from many years ago that you and I did for the Huffington Post. You probably have it too. It's our take on the Super Bowl.
Right.
Our individual takes on, what we used to love about it was the advertising, the whole bit. And I compare some of the stuff that we were writing for some of these business magazines to this, 12 phrases you could never use. And I'm like, where have I been? I needed to really simplify what I was doing. I mean, I would spend hours on these things. I am sure this is the Charles Dickens paid by the word. I don't know. That's terrible for me to say. But well, many who listen have never heard me be so. You know me. I'm kind of like gray.
You're gray. You're gray.
Tim's very
but
black
what the
and
funny
white.
thing is you're not gray when you're off. When we've got to. I've been trying for 14 years now to get you.
When
to
I'm
not be
off
so
mic, I
brazen.
am most certainly not gray. I have strong opinions.
It's okay not to be gray.
All right, folks, that's all we have time for today. We want to thank you for joining us, and a big thanks to Deep.
At the end of the day, John.
At the end of the day, the show's over. The press I gave Pepsi was mine and mine alone. It's a sword that cuts both ways. Mommy Dearest is not necessarily in the Halloween section of Deep
It
Discount,
could be. It
but
was a horror for board Christine.
you could find it in the and watch it over Halloween. Big thanks to Deep Discount for joining us here on the program. They've been with us for quite a long time. Visit Deep Discount by going to focusgroupradio.com and clicking on the shark logo. It's the Halloween sale. I recommended Kojak, or The Night Stalker. Tim recommended The Visit, and the release this week is Back to the Future, The Ultimate Collection. It's a trilogy of all three films by Robert Zemeckis, including digital downloads. So, don't text and drive, arrive alive, and mask up, and we'll see you in the new week.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.